mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. I'm only here to even a score. Whoa. My mind is set, my grind is set, my heart on ice cold. We down right now, but did it before. Whoa. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up. See from here we going up. Made the call, I shown up. Now the game is sewn up. Say my name is blown up. We up, 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 we up.
What up, Night Nation? It's your boy Roger, and we are a day late, but not a dollar short. We've got the crew in the house, and we're here to talk some UCF football. Lots of scrimmage updates since the last time we talked, and also some updates from the coaches. So excited to talk about that as we march towards the season. Alan will help us cover the offensive line and the wide receivers this week. So excited to see what he comes up with. We got some impressions from the coaches. And on top of that, we have a few standouts that you may not be expecting. We got a big commit in UCF Baseball. We'll do a little listener love. Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week. And, surprise, surprise, Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. And you know what that means? He's back. All right, folks. Before we begin, let's go ahead and bring in the man who runs the show much better than I do. No, bro. What's up, bro?
Hey now. What's going on?
Hey now. I love that intro, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Let's get that hair flip. All right, there it is. Next, bringing back to the show, the other guy with the good hair flip, the good hair, Alan Levin. What's up, Alan?
I actually need a haircut. I'm getting one next week.
Oh, hold on now. We remember, folks, for all of our listeners and viewers, once we get to 1,000 subscribers, and we bumped up another 21 this week, so it's getting closer, Alan, or 11 this week, so it's getting closer. Once we bump up to 1,000 subs, Alan will cut his hair. Last but not least, but always last to the show, Josh Lazar.
Hello, world. It's me. I'm back. And don't ask me how, because spoiler alert, only popped in 1 minute ago. So I surprised Roger that I was going to be on. I'm trying to be here for the fans. That's my goal. I'm trying to be here and the team if I can.
So basically, Josh, you're an OnlyFans kind of guy. All right, we got it. So that being said, we will have some other folks joining. Trey will be joining us on the show a little bit later. He's had a plumbing emergency. So he's got his Pepto-Bismol out. No, wrong type of plumbing. But he's got a plumbing emergency. He will be joining us later on the show to talk a little bit more about Scottfrost and you know what's going on at the scrimmages. All right, so Alan looks like he'll be back. He was having a camera issue for some reason, but we need to put him back on the show because guess what? This is his section. So we're going to start off with a little preview as we march towards the season, and we'll talk about offensive linemen first, and then we'll get into the wide receivers. We have 24 total offensive linemen to talk about this year. Almost complete rebuild, which is a little bit scary, but we did hear some noise within the coaching circles about the offensive linemen, how they're starting to gel. There's Alan. He's back on the show. His background is gone, but he is back. All right. So, Alan, why don't you take it from here and tell us a little bit more about the offensive linemen?
Yeah, the O-line, man. I feel like we've said this for almost every position we've previewed so far on the pod, but the O-line got really, really decimated by the transfer portal mainly, but also some graduation. We lost 4/5 of the starting lineup from last year. Obviously, some names that were producers for us. Marcellus Marshall, who was an honorable Big 12 honorable mention in his first year with us. Obviously, Caden Kittler, who had made some strides at center. Was in and out of lineup at times through his 2 years here, but was a pretty big recruit and someone was expected to do a lot. Adrian Medley, who is kind of an OG recruit, was here during the Heupel era. Pretty much started Every year he was here outside of the year, he lost to an ACL injury. So that was tough. He went over to Florida State after staying at UCF for 4 years. So went there for his 5th year. And then Amari Kite obviously graduated and then ended up getting a UDFA deal. I'm drawing a blank. I think it was with.
All right. So he's still thinking about who that's with. So yeah, lots of big losses there. I mean, Kite for sure. Somebody needs to get a screen grab of that. Like, seriously, you got it? Yeah, okay, awesome. We'll post that later on our on our Twitter page.
That's you vertically for Instagram.
Okay, so let me add. Trey Neal just popped in. Hey Trey, welcome back, bro.
What's up, fellas? How you doing?
You get it all out, bro?
No, it wasn't me this time. It was not me. Man. Yeah, we got it fixed. So.
All right. Well, glad you're here. So you can chime in on the scrimmage and everything else. So, a couple things I wanted to. I guess I'll pick up for Alan here. We finally lost him. He's coming back in, I think. There he is. Alan. You can you go ahead and keep going on the offensive line?
I think I heard you say you caught me. I was talking about Amari Kite. I think was the last thing, maybe.
Yeah,
that was Medley, right?
Well, Adrian Medley and Amari Kite.
Yeah, so Adrian Medley transferred to Florida State to be with Gus, and then Amari Kite graduated and then got a UDFA deal, I believe, with the Panthers or some other team, forgot. But so on top of that, UCF also lost Walt Claire Flynn Jr. in the portal, Chase Malamal in the portal, Keon Cox in the portal, as well as Jonathan Klein. So there was a lot of attrition. And because of that, UCF had to bring in a lot of transfers. There was 7 new transfers that came in from the portal. I think the big 2 names that people are most excited about are Carter Miller, who was all-conference player in the Sun Belt for University of Louisiana Monroe last year, as well as guard Melamar. I'm not sure if I said that right, but he played at Washington and was one of the more coveted players in the portal. And there's a couple other guys like Justin Royas, who came from Virginia Union, Owen Spell, another Limestone guy, and then Connor Meadows, who's a Tennessee State guy. And then we had a couple other Power 4 guys, Preston Cushman, who came over from Ole Miss. And then one more actually FCS guy, LaParca Langston, who came from Northwestern Mississippi. So a lot of transfers, all big guys. Right now, it looks like, this line is going to be completely dominated by transfers. The lone returning starter is our guy, Paul Rubelt, the big German who's made a lot of strides. We think we've all seen it in the last couple of years. Actually got named to a couple watch lists here in the preseason. So his efforts are starting to get recognized, which is nice. So along with the transfers and him, UCF also did some work in the 2025 recruiting class. They brought in 4 offensive linemen, Jacob Maiva from Hawaii. They brought in Ryshawn McHaney from Indianapolis, Camp Lott, which is a great name, from Mississippi. And then Jack Joyner, who was actually a Gus Malzahn recruit, but ended up, staying aboard even when they made this transition to Frost. And he's from down the street at Cocoa Beach High. So, those guys are probably redshirt, but there's a lot of names here. I think the only guy we've really seen proven that we know a lot about is Paul Rubelt. And we had a couple other, returning, I would say, key reserves. I would say that Jabari Brooks and Cam Kinney and Keegan Smith are key reserve guys. The 3 of those guys combined played 39 games just last year alone. So I know that Keegan Smith and Jabari and Kinney played in all 12 games, and then I believe the other 2 kind of played in sparingly. So we got some key reserves back, but this is going to be a line that's very much so dominated by transfers and I guess Paul Rubelt. So, but nothing we're not used to. I mean, the offensive line essentially has been brand new every single season since the portal happened. We've had a lot of attrition every single year. There's been a couple guys we've kept every single year, like whether it's Loki Paole or obviously Rubelt now, but for the most part, it's been pretty much transfer heavy, but even more so this year.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me when I look at the losses, right? So for the names that stand out for me, Walt Claire Flynn, we were expecting a lot out of Walt Claire Flynn. He was a big time recruit. Chase Malamamala, he was coming into his own or starting to come into his own. And the big one for me is Adrian Medley. We knew we were going to lose Kite. Kite was a solid contributor for us as well, but we knew we were going to lose him. So those are the big losses for me. The interesting thing for me, though, is, with offensive line, a lot of it has to do with footwork and timing, right? And guys knowing exactly where they need to be, or if they're seeing something from the defense, making sure they are either shading the direction they need to shade, or, having that technical prowess and understanding. That's why they talk about offensive linemen needing to play together so that they know instinctively what the other one is doing, right? So if you see them if one starts to see one do something, the other one knows. So they've been together largely since the spring, which is the positive about that, right? Because on the offensive line, the biggest piece of this is just getting a consistent group to play together. How, Alan, from a size perspective, other than Paul Rubel, because we know he's a basically giant redwood tree, what is the weight across the line? We knew we had an average of about 315 pounds plus on the defensive line, and that's important for the Power 5 or Power 4. How does the offensive line stack up as far as size is concerned, especially with these guys coming from the FCS ranks and some of the other places they've come?
Yeah, this is not like Frost 1.0 where you had guys like Jordan Johnson and some of these, slimmer kind of maybe faster offensive linemen. Every single O-line transfer we got was, 6'2", 6'3" plus and over 300 pounds. There's some real big ones here. You have guys like LaParca Langston from Northwest Mississippi, 6'7", 305 pounds. Guard Melamar is 6'4", 315. Justin Royas is 6'5", 310. Preston Cushman, 6'5", 305. Connor Meadows, 6'4", 305. And Owen Spell, 6'8", 310 pounds. So they almost rival, some of these guys almost rival Paul Rubel's size. Maybe not quite as tall, but these are all big boys. So, I don't think it's a question of size. For me, I think when you have these kind of makeshift offensive lines that are made up of almost completely transfers, is how quickly can they gel? And on top of that, you have brand new quarterback that they'll be protecting, new running backs. It's and a new coach. It's interesting. We've seen some offensive lines at UCF gel together fairly quickly in the last couple of years. But when you think of the best offensive lines like 17, 18, 13, those were guys that all played with each other from freshman year on up. When you think of the guys like Aaron Evans and guys like that, and Jordan Johnson, and some of these guys that played together for 3, 4, 5 years. And these, outside of Rubel, none of these guys have, they're all brand new. So it'll be interesting to see if they can gel pretty quickly here.
Yeah, football games are won in the trenches, right? Both on the D line and the offensive line. And Coach O'Leary and Trey can speak to this. Coach O'Leary used to say, the further away you are from the ball, the easier it is, right? So these guys that are on the offensive line, they're going to be there for every snap. They're going to be grinding. They're the key to our run game and the pass protection, right? We've got some running backs that'll be able to help with that. But and I hate to say but, the guys know, or if you've watched the show for a while, I hate to say that. But I do think that ultimately one of the key things for us is not just continuity, but how quickly they can get the speed, right? So I expect some of our play calling, especially earlier in the season, to be much simpler, right? So that they get the checks right. Your center is going to be doing checks on the defense, et cetera. They're going to be looking for certain things. The good news is a lot of these guys are experienced that are transferring in, so they should be okay with regard to the mental game and being able to pick up blitzes and understand what they're seeing from the defense. The challenging part is going to be how fast are they going to be able to pick up the playbook so that they can go at warp speed when they need to, right? Because one of the things that Coach Frost is doing and has said, and that's came out of the interviews this week after the scrimmage, et cetera, that happened on Thursday, is that they need to be able to get off the ball. And in his words, they were a little lackadaisical. And so when they're doing that and they're lining up, that leads to penalties. And that's one thing we don't want to see, or we don't need to see when we go fast, is penalties, because that's going to slow us down and put us behind the chains. We do not want to be behind the chains when we're in a hurry up offense. So for me, it's okay. These guys all have some experience. How fast can they gel? But more importantly, are they putting, with their size, are they putting the level of effort that they need to make sure they're getting to the line when they need to and getting there more quickly? Trey, you were there during 2016, 2017. Tell us a little bit about the offensive line, how fast they gelled, et cetera. What did you see from the other side of the ball?
In 2016, it still took time because we had a lot of seniors. And relative to 2015, we kind of mixed it up. I know Wyatt Miller switched positions, Aaron Evans switched positions. So it took some time, which I think we saw pay off in 2018. Or 2017, and that's where I think, kind of what you were hitting on. The O-line is one of those positions where it takes time to just gel. It's hard to just 1 year and just hit it, and just have an amazing offensive line, because that's probably one of the positions where, like, everybody's tied to a string. That's what they like to say. If one guy's going, if one person's pulling the wrong direction, everybody looks bad. So that's where it's, I think that's going to be the only growing pain as far as them. I mean, you guys hit on it, the physicality. It seems like they're plenty big enough guys, plenty big enough as far as the physical part. But so we'll see.
How long did it take it during the 2016 season for them to gel to a point where they were competitive within the game of roundabouts where they should be?
I think they were competitive from the jump. I just think it's like you can be competitive throughout the whole game, but say, we always say football's won or lost by 5 games. If you look, or 5 plays, sorry. If you look at 2 or 3 of those plays, they're like an O-line mess up. And now instead of 2nd and 3, you go to 3rd and 8. And then that's a huge difference, whether even if you just get no yards, 3rd and 3 is very different than 3rd and 8. So it was things like that. And it may be little in the grand scheme of it, but you look like those are like drive killers, as we call them. Like, goodness gracious, like that we were moving the ball, and then boom, we just had a drive killer. So I think they gelled over the course of the year. Obviously, it got better over the course of the year, but I think it was about until year 2 where you kind of understand, one, what Coach Frost wants. I don't know exactly what they're doing, if it's exactly how we did it, but you still got to have a feel of why he's calling plays, how he wants you to block. In certain situations, your block might not be the same. You don't just call one play and it's the same play over and over. 1st and 10, how you block could be different than 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, so it's those kind of reps that you don't have enough time to get all of those reps in camp, in spring, over the summer. It just happens in the game, and that's where you learn most of it. So,
yeah, the interesting thing too is in this first scrimmage, they were focusing a lot on both on the defensive line and the offensive line for goal line, right? So that's one of the things we struggled with the last few years, and it's really where you're putting hat on a hat and trying to out physical each other. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on when we get to our scrimmage recap. But when you're talking about that, the defensive line kept the offensive line out of the end zone on 3 consecutive plays on a goal line play. So stuff like that, our defensive line, I don't know how much to take from that, because our defensive line from ends is going to be stacked, right?
Yeah.
So it's good for goal line defense, which I appreciate. But then, when we're talking about the offense, that's been a bugaboo for us for a while, and we have a good stack of running backs. I'm just worried that the offensive line, I hope they round into shape. The good news is we've got 2 games of live action for them to get under their belt against lesser competition. And then we hit North Carolina, which will be interesting to see what they look like. We'll actually be on game week. We'll be interviewing the guys from the Heel Brothers podcast, and we'll also be participating with them to preview the game. So make sure you tune in week by week, because we're going to try to preview as many of the Big 12 games and the out-of-conference games as we can with members of the other team. Okay. Alan, you also said we have 4 offensive linemen in the 2025 class. If you were those guys, it's going to take a couple years probably for someone, at least a year for someone like Jacquez Joyner, who was a very highly touted recruit, to crack the starting lineup. Do we think that the offensive line talent that we brought in is enough to overcome some of, the issues that we have with time?
It feels like this is one of the least talented offensive line at UCF in recent memory. I mean, there's been some guys that have done some good things at their previous schools, whether it's Memolar or specifically Carter Miller, who was, like I said, was all Sun Belt. But I don't know. I mean, when you look at I thought under Gus, the transfers were actually better. Like, I mean, you look at a guy like, Marcellus Marshall, he ended up being an all Big 12 honorable mention. Some of these other guys like Caden Kittler, he played right away as a freshman, which is fairly rare at UCF. You don't see too many freshman O linemen play. So I don't know. It feels a little.
Yeah, but we also went through 3 or 4 centers in one season. I mean, I don't know how much of that was Caden Kittler or that was something else.
That was a lot of injury, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's a lot of rotation there. Agreed. A lot of kind of in and out, but there was definitely injuries played a part into that. So I don't know. You look at some of the schools these guys came from. It's not necessarily, we talk about this all the time. I mean, maybe that doesn't necessarily matter, but you talk about like some of the key guys: Northwestern Mississippi, Virginia Union, Limestone, Tennessee State. So I don't know. I think there's enough to be suitable, and you like the size of some of these guys. I mean, like you said, in the Big 12, look at teams like Kansas State and Oklahoma State that have these big, guys up front. So I think we can kind of match them pound for pound in that sense. But I don't know. A lot of these guys too don't have a ton of experience. You had guys that have dealt with injuries throughout their career, and some of these guys who landed in the portal. Some guys that played very sparingly at their previous schools. I'm actually fairly interested in seeing what some of the returning guys can do. Not that there's that many of them, but Keegan Smith played in 12 games last year in a very important reserve role. Rubelt obviously started all 12 games. Cam Kinney has played in a lot, and he's been now in his 3rd year after transferring over from Georgia. Jabari Brooks ended up playing a pretty key role after transferring over from Samford last year. So I think some of these returning guys actually could make a fairly big impact, even though as of now, it does seem that probably 3/5 of the starting lineup at O-line is predicted to be transfers. And obviously then Rubelt is looking like one of the starters. And I think Brooks might actually be at the other tackle spot. So I'm kind of more interested to see what the returning guys can do. I don't know much about these new guys, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, for me, the JUCO guys, you mentioned some JUCO guys in there. You mentioned some guys that came from lower FBS or D2, right? And I think for me, I'm more confident in the JUCO guys than I am the lower FBS guys. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of times the JUCO guys, for whatever reason, they have the talent out of high school or the size, and they just got under recruited, or because they're playing at a smaller school or something like that's happening, so that they don't get the exposure that they need to make it up there. So it doesn't sound like you're too high on the offensive line. Who are you projecting to be the starting offensive line for us this year? Besides Rubelt, obviously he's going to start.
Yeah, Rubelt is going to be at left tackle for sure. I'm really confident that Carter Miller is going to get the center spot. I mean, we don't really have too many other known centers. I know guys can shift around and play multiple positions. We've seen it, time and time again at UCF, but Carter Miller played center, at ULM for, 2-3 years. So I'm thinking he's going to get the center spot. That's all the buzz there. Like I said, Rubelt at left tackle. I'm thinking it's going to be Cushman or Meadows at right tackle. They both played right tackle at their previous schools. Not a ton of experience, but they did play there. Then I'd be shocked if at left guard it wasn't the Washington transferred guard Melamar. He was a highly valued transfer, played 11 of 12 games last year for the Huskies. So I feel good about that. And then at right guard, I think it probably ends up going to Brooks. He ended up being reserve last year. It was predicted to win out the spot, but ended up being a two deep guy. But I think he'll probably start at right guard. And then, some of these backups, maybe I think Cushman or Meadows, like I said, could start at right tackle. Then the other one would kind of be the reserve guy. Then I would think Smith and Kinney also get some time at the tackle spot, maybe behind Rubelt. But I think those would, right now it's looking like Rubelt, Miller, Memelar, Brooks, and Cushman, I think would be the starters.
Yeah, what's interesting is I'm seeing a lot of fifth-year guys on here and a lot of, juniors. And then it'll be interesting because we've got a ton of guys that we can run with. The one thing that kind of sticks out to me out of all of them is Andrew Phelan, offensive line, 6'3", but only 250 pounds, like from East River in Orlando. So it's really, really, really interesting to me that he's even on the roster. So overall, when we start talking about this, what would you grade the offensive line talent for this year?
I probably go C+, B-, somewhere in that range. I don't think the depth is really there, and I don't think UCF has had a ton of depth at offensive line in recent years anyway, so it's not too different. But you felt good about somewhat good about the starting five, and then it kind of gets reinforced when RJ Harvey has back-to-back 1,500 plus yards. I mean, I know that's probably just more RJ, but at the end of the day, we're opening up space for him to run, and some of the offensive line, they transferred to some pretty big schools after playing at UCF and had some good years at UCF. Some of those recent transfers that ended up leaving, whether it was, Marshall or Medley, Amari Kite. So I don't think it's as talented. I think the depth is probably the same, but the starting five does not feel as strong as even last year.
So is this something that we should be overly worried about, or because when you say C, right, and C and B minus maybe, or C plus and B minus, whatever you said, me at one of the most critical positions or position groups on the field, that has me a little concerned, especially with 3 new quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think there's reason for concern here. I mean, there's a lot of, brand new players all over the field, but yeah, I think this is definitely one of the more causes for concern. I mean, look, I've been wrong before, but I don't know. It doesn't feel, I haven't heard even a ton of buzz. I mean, I feel good about, the coach we brought over was App State's former head coach, is the guy that has a lot of, has historically been an offensive line coach before he became a head coach at App State. So I think we have a good coach there. Then I think the difference, obviously, we all know, compared to the Gus regime, compared to now Frost, is the player development is more key and more important, and usually and had a good track record under Frost 1.0. So there's definitely that. But a lot of these guys too, like you said, they're like 5th-year seniors. They're going to be one and done. So I don't know. It's tough, I think. And then you talk about potential injuries, which happen in football. There's not a ton there to back it up. So I think there's a cause for concern for the group as a whole.
All right. Well, let's. Does anybody have anything else that they want to say about the offensive line? Josh, do you have anything that you want to add to the table? You've been awful quiet.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about this stuff because you have Trey, who's lived it, and you have Alan, who breathes it almost. Here's what I think: this is such a we don't know what we're going to get season, and a lot of people, I'd say the reasonable people, are giving everything and everyone, maybe the team, as much of a benefit of the doubt as possible. So even if on paper and by metrics, this offensive line isn't exactly where we might expect it to be, we're also not getting articles from offensive linemen talking about what they're doing at Pop Stroke and golfing. Yeah. And karaoke, and who's the best at Madden. Like, these are just not things that we were really hearing a lot about within the last couple of years. And maybe they were happening, and Gus wouldn't let that outside of the team. But I feel like no matter what we have, can the process, if you will, and I hate using that. I feel 76ers when I say that. Can the process of what Frost wants to do with the resources we have put forth a team that can punch above its weight class? And that's what I think we're going to see. So Alan is
I
probably
think
100% correct.
I
It
think
can really be the diamond mining and do these big things, even in year one.
so. Josh, I think the big equalizer on all of this is our D line, right? Because I have a feeling that we have the running back room. We've got some pretty good defensive players. We talked about the defense in the last couple of episodes, right? But that D line is going to give them lots of opportunities. So the question to me is again, the question on the quarterback, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But does this offensive line have enough juice as it goes through the season by game 5 or game 6? That's really what I'm looking for to withstand, the Lee Hunters of the world they'll be facing at Texas Tech or, folks like that. And that'll be interesting. Trey, do you have anything else you want to add?
Oh, I mean, I think this is going to be a good, depending on the D line. I think everything is contingent on them. If they can, I think they're going to carry. How we're going to go as our D line goes, and our quarterback play, obviously offensively. But I think our D line has the ability to. They could single-handedly take games over by themselves. Like, if they play to their potential, they could take over games. If we get a lead, they could take over games by themselves. And I think that's the most exciting thing, in my opinion, with that.
I think that and turnovers. I think if the defensive line plays well enough, our focus is on turnovers, which is going to get the offense more swings of the bat, right? And that's really what I'm looking to see, and hopefully see growth by game 3, 4, and 5. As we kind of move along. All right, Alan, that covers the O-line for now. We have a few other comments that came out of the scrimmage for them later on. Why don't we move on to the wide receivers? Tell us all about the wide receivers.
Yeah, wide receiver. This, to me, is one of the more interesting position groups on offense. I think we're seeing something. I've been watching UCF football since 2007, and I've never seen this amount of attrition. And it wasn't purely from the portal. I mean, the stat here is 100% of the production from last year, meaning any single player that caught a single catch on last year's team is gone. There's not one player back. I've never seen that. Not even, a freshman that caught 2 balls or 3 balls. There's not a single guy back from last year. Really, there's just 2 returning players. Jordan Bridgewater is one of them, and then the other one is drawing a blank on his name right now, but Oprah Richardson and Jordan Bridgewater, the only 2 guys back, and they did not catch a single pass last year. So I've never seen anything like that, and a lot of that was due to, the team was very veteran laden last year. Kobe Hudson graduated, Chauncey Magwood graduated, Trent Whittemore graduated, Gerard Baker graduated, and then you had and Javarius Johnson, and then Jacoby Jones. Also, there was some, is he going to transfer? Is he going to end up graduating? He ended up graduating too, and then he ended up going pro. Actually, caught a touchdown the other day in the preseason. So we just got unlucky there. I mean, there's a couple young guys that transferred, Tyree Patterson and Kason Stokes, but for the most part, it was all graduation. So we just got, again, decimated there. I know I keep
Alan, I don't think that's luck though. I think that was Gus's focus after 4 or 5 years of being the head coach on transfers. I mean, that's
it was. It was. I mean, but some of those guys had been with us for multiple years. Like Kobe Hudson had been with us multiple years. Magwood had, Javarius Johnson, no, and Jacoby Jones, no. But yes, you're right. It was a lot of transfers they brought in that were 5th years or redshirt seniors. So yeah, it's partly, I guess, just the timing and partly the strategy, like you said. So we lost everyone from last year. I mean, at least it wasn't due to the portal. Tyree Patterson didn't play. Kason Stokes never played. So, not too big there in terms of, obviously they were highly recruited, but we never saw anything from them. So this, similar to the O-line, this wide receiver group is relying all on transfers. And we'll talk a little bit also on the freshman class. So we got 5 kind of key transfers. I think the name that's been talked about a lot is DJ Black from Limestone. He had a kind of breakout season last year for D2 Limestone. who's actually no longer a football program, but he had a little over 1,000 yards, something like 12 touchdowns. So he had a really, really good year. He's kind of the favorite right now, I think, to lead the group. So there's some excitement around him. Then they got Dwayne Thomas later in the spring transfer class from Charlotte. Didn't have like a big season for them at all, but apparently he's looked very good in camp. His name has come up multiple times from wide receiver coach Sean Beckton. So there's definitely some excitement there. Then you have Marcus Burke, who was a really big recruit for Florida 4 years ago. Every year, kind of going into the season, there was talk of him breaking out. He did have his best year last year, so there is some buzz that he could, end up finally kind of living up to his potential this year in a new system and after his best year in college last year. So we'll see how he looks. And then they also landed Chris Domercant again late in the portal season from Chattanooga. And then the big one who looked really good throughout spring was Day Farmer. This is the guy that local Orlando guy, only spent a year at West Virginia, was originally in UCF's class before decommitting, and then unfortunately he suffered a lower leg injury and he's going to be out for the season. So that was a really big blow. I mean, he was expected to be a starter, really talented, played at West Virginia. So really unfortunate loss there. So it's going to be very, again, dominated by transfers. I think DJ Black and Dwayne Thomas are two of the maybe three favorite wide receivers to start, but who's getting a lot of buzz. Two of our three highest rated recruits in the 25 class were wide receivers, and that 4-star Carl Jenkins Jr. And then you had a high 3-star in Wade and Charles, both from Florida, both big dudes, both 6'2". But Wade and Charles has been making waves. UCF posted on their Instagram an awesome one-handed catch he had the other day. I don't know if it was in scrimmage or in practice, but he is looking like a bona fide starter. Like they're saying he's going to play this year, not a special teams role. Like he'll be playing right away, can stretch the field, a real vertical threat. So there's a lot of excitement about him. And I think that's what we've all been waiting for at UCF, is that next kind of freshman guy that starts with us and is good right away. We've seen it time and time again in years past, whether it's Traquan Smith, who is all AAC Rookie of the Year, or Gabe Davis had a really good freshman year. Jedrick Snelson had a really good freshman year. Wade and Charles feels like that guy that's going to be there. But yeah, this group is just so up in the air. I mean, we talk about there's not a single returning guy that's proven, because there's only 2 guys returning. And then the transfers, really only DJ Black is the only one that's really put up, numbers. If you're looking at purely a stat line, Dwayne Thomas didn't do much at Charlotte. Day-Day's injured. Marcus Burke has been very up and down, and Domercant, again, didn't play much at Chattanooga. So it's tough to really evaluate this group, but I'm excited. It feels like there's some young talent there, especially with Jenkins and Charles. And then, Bridgewater and Burdell Richardson, they were both 4-star recruits out of Gus. And everyone was kind of pushing for them to play. If you recall last offseason, Burdell Richardson got a ton of buzz in both spring and summer and fall camp. And then he was nowhere to be seen during the season. I think he played a couple reps on special teams and that was it. So there's a lot of names there. There's a lot of depth here. And I think you talk about difference maker, big equalizer, is our wide receiver coach, is Sean Beckton. Historically, Sean Beckton has recruited and developed wide receivers. It's why wide receiver is arguably the best or second best position historically for UCF when it talks about NFL talent and development as a whole. I mean, he's essentially every wide receiver you've heard of in the last 10 years. Sean Beckton had a hand in that development. Yeah. So for me, I feel really good that he's back, and he's not coaching tight ends. He's coaching wide receivers. He coached tight ends at Nebraska. So I feel really, best wide receiver coach UCF has ever had in development. And there's talent here. It's not a question of that. It's just all these guys have never really played before outside of DJ Black. And it's unprecedented at UCF. I've never seen a wide receiver group where we don't have at least one bona fide star. I'll admit the depth, hasn't been as great in recent years, and obviously been very run heavy under Gus, but you knew you had something in Javon Baker. Last year, you knew you had something in Kobe Hudson. Years before that, Marvin Williams. There's always at least one guy, and this year you're just not sure who that is.
So I'll take a different tact from that. I think DJ Black is that guy. He's got size, he's got speed, he's got hands, and he's been showing out. So I think DJ Black, number one, will be that guy. Day Farmer would have been as well. The challenge with Day Farmer is, like you said, he was injured. But remember, Day Farmer was originally a UCF commit, then went to FSU and then came back, which is kind of funny considering that Gus went to FSU and Day Farmer came here. So I think DJ Black is someone to look out for. Wade and Charles, I've heard nothing but amazing things about Wade and Charles. Been mentioned by everybody. So I expect him to get some play. Burdell Richardson, I'd like to dig into that a little bit more. So Burdell Richardson, 100% was expected to be a breakout star and to get playing time. He had some good, buzz about him in the preseason as well. The challenge for Burdell Richardson was his attitude. He came in as a 4-star. He didn't. He was doing YouTube videos about his daily life, as a wide receiver, which is great. More power to you for doing that, right? But apparently his attitude, him showing up for practice on time, all those kinds of things, it just wasn't there. Now, how much of that was Gus and what he promised him? How much of that was the culture that was we've talked about that ad nauseum, and how much of that is him figuring that out? Burdell Richardson was starting to get buzz again. I think he and DJ Black, along with Wade and Charles, are the 3 names you need to look out for wide receiver, only because Day-Day's out. If Day-Day was playing this year, I think Day-Day and DJ would be the 2 big names, followed by Wade and Charles. And then Burdell Richardson, it could have taken DJ's spot, right? So I think Burdell Richardson has a ton of talent. And to your point, the change in coaching staff, I think, is a huge difference, right? When you talk about and everybody from Gabe Davis to, going all the way back, who they're being coached by is a George O'Leary acolyte. And when we were talking about this with Trey, part of the reason the 2017 team was so successful is you had the work ethic from that George O'Leary era paired with the fun part of the Frost era, which got people and that carefree play, right? Which equated to success. And I think that Burdell Richardson will blossom with Coach Beck because Coach knows he's played the game. He's played in the NFL. He's got that Coach O'Leary mindset. He knows the position inside and out better than probably anybody in college football as a wide receiver coach. And he's a guy who will hold them accountable. So if you have that accountability, I think at the end of the day, Burdell Richardson's going to shine. And I bet you by the end of the season, we're going to be saying his name a lot more. So to me, I think if you have those core 4, right? DJ Black, Carl Jenkins, Wade and Charles. If you have those guys together, I think that this group can be a better wide receiver core than what we had with Kobe Hudson, et cetera, in the past, because we had 2 players. That was it, right? It was either going to Kobe and that was it last year. Before that, you had 2. So I think we've actually got more threats this year, and I'm really, really high on DJ Black. He was a champion in high school as far as a track star is concerned. He's really, really fast. He's got a big body. He can win 50-50 balls, and he's athletic. So I really think that DJ Black's going to show out. I really think that Wade and Charles is going to get some opportunities. And I do really think that Burdell Richardson got his bell rung a little bit after last year and understood that, hey, he didn't see the field because of it. And when someone like that, who's a big time name and a 4-star recruit, doesn't see the field, that kind of has a tendency to humble them and with his new coach.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, guys. Did I say it all? What happened there? I mean, you guys just went completely silent. Dead air.
I think you hit it on the head.
I think DJ Black is someone to be excited about. I think you make a point there could be more depth. I mean, I think Frost will utilize the receivers a lot more than Malzahn did. I still think it's a little bit up in the air. I mean, we're projecting DJ Black to be good, and I think there's good reason for it, but behind them, we're not sure. It could be Burdell, right? It could be these guys. We just don't know. I mean, they haven't really proven. I mean, that hasn't stopped UCF before. I mean, Marlon Williams wasn't proven until he was proven, right? And some of these guys that, just showed up. And I think the fact that we're going to utilize the air game a little bit more than the last 3-4 years, and we don't have an RJ Harvey on the field, will definitely help.
Well, and we're also not limited. We're not limited in our playbook, and we're not limited by our quarterback situation as much, right? And we're also not limited by the fact that we only have 2 real bell cows, which is what we had before. And Kobe Hudson last year, yeah, we had Trent Whittemore stepped up a little bit. We had other folks that were stepping up, but we didn't have that depth at wide receiver. It was really, really thin. You had one guy you were going to, and that was it. And the playbook was set up that way too. So, I think to your point, one, Scott is going to open up the playbook a lot more as far as what the wide receivers do, right? As far as route trees are concerned. How many times over the previous years have we been talking about, let's use the middle of the field? Why aren't we going to our tight ends? We started doing that a little bit last year, but it was just basically go routes and chuck the ball if we get the defense to buy the fake, right? That was pretty much it. That was the offense as far as wide receivers were concerned. There was no complexity. The route trees were blank. You even when you start hearing about some of these receivers in the NFL, that was part of the problem that they were having, is they didn't know the route trees very well. They weren't good on the whiteboard. And that's because they never had to do it. So yeah, it's pure offensive talent, but if you've got more offensive talent, and more importantly, you've got good coaching and a playbook that'll take advantage of the receivers when it's there, I think you're good. Now the question is, can the quarterbacks step up to the challenge and make the decisions that they need to make? And we kind of talked about that a little bit last week as well, right? On whether we feel like Jakuri could step up, or if Cam has the arm that he needs, et cetera. And that's going to be the other part of this question. But I think on the wide receiver core, I actually feel better about this wide receiver core than I have about our wide receiver core in probably 3 years. Would you guys agree with that?
As a whole, yes. It was still nice going into the last 2 years, knowing you had Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson. You're like, oh, these guys are awesome. I mean, Javon Baker is an NFL draft pick. Kobe Hudson right now is UDFA, and you felt good. I mean, they both actually ended up top 10 all time in UCF receiving yards. So these are guys that did really well here. I don't think you have that as of now. That could change. I mean, DJ Black, we could talk. And we've seen wide receivers come in here for 1 year and be amazing. Like Brandon Johnson, transfer from Tennessee, had a 12 touchdown season, what is one of the best single seasons by a receiver in school history. So I'm not saying that I can't happen. I think I feel better overall about the depth as a whole, and definitely the young guys. I feel really good about Wade and Charles, and even Carl Jenkins. And when someone like Wade and Charles is getting shout outs from Sean Beckton himself, I feel really good about that. So yeah, I think the depth is better, and I think there's I feel more excitement and hope about the wide receiver position I do in the last few years, like you said. But I still don't think we have that comfort of knowing, all right, we do have a Kobe Hudson, we do have Javon Baker, who are, bona fide, go to all.
But even Kobe Hudson had drop problems. We did.
He was good. He was a real player for us.
Well, and when we had both of them, Javon Baker and Kobe Hudson, right? They went to Kobe Hudson first. He did well. And then they went to Javon Baker the rest of the season, and he kind of disappeared. So I don't know. To me, I think when I'm looking at size, right, because a lot of these names we're talking about, Burdell Richardson is primarily an inside threat, right? So they're not going to be the boundary guys. So I think, with a guy like Wade and Charles, who's 6'2", 185, and DJ Black, who's 6'3", 195, and has speed, that's a guy. DJ Black is going to be a guy that's going to make a lot of noise. And so I wish we had Day-Day, because Day-Day was a beast.
Yeah, that would be a big difference maker.
But I still think, and I hope he comes back next year, having to sit this season out after injury, right? But I think the guys that we do have are, I think they're actually between Burdell, who's 6', 180, between DJ Black, Carl Jenkins, I think, is going to get there, but Wade and Charles, he's showing out already. And we didn't even mention Jordan Bridgewater, right? Jordan Bridgewater was also pretty highly touted when he came in. And shout out to Jordan's mom, who we shouted out last week, who follows us and, and hit us up on Twitter. But Jordan Bridgewater is another one that I think could make some noise. He's starting to make some noise now, but I think DJ Black, he's going to be the focus receiver this year, in my opinion. And I think that, I think Bradell Richardson's going to get a lot of play too. So to me, I think we are more talented now than we were the last 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I feel definitely better about receiver. I'd give it probably like a B, and I think there's a lot of potential here, especially if you can have, some of these guys are older like DJ Black, but I mean, if you're talking next year, if you have even if Bridgewater and Richardson show progress, and then Wade and Charles and Carl Jenkins look who like they're supposed to be, and then Day comes back, that's a great core five that would be, reminiscent of some of those 17, 18 teams where you did have a 5 deep wide receiver room. So it's definitely possible.
Who do you expect to start?
Yeah, Wade. I think it's going to be DJ Black, Wade and Charles, and Dwayne Thomas Jr. are going to be the 3 starters, in my opinion.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You don't think Bradell sees the field?
No, I didn't say he didn't see the field. I don't think he's going to be a starter. No, I don't think he'll be the starter.
That's interesting.
How many do you think they're going to play? I mean, how you think they're going to have like a 4 wide receiver set at any like? They
will. They absolutely will, but I don't think that'll be their consistent. This is not Josh Heupel, right? Offense, right? So to me, I think that I think DJ Black, I think Bradell will be the inside slot guy, and
I think Charles is starting for sure, though.
The way that they've been talking about him, yeah, I think so too. And only because Day that would have changed with Day being back in the rotation.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else we need to talk about that before we move on to the next?
No, I don't think so.
All right, let's go ahead and swiv it, and then we'll give our scrimmage update. So, swiv it. All right. In other UCF news, Myles Montgomery added to the Doak Walker preseason watch list. So congrats to Myles Montgomery. Excited about that. There's a lot of buzz going about him. This is his year to shine. Kane Archer was named as a 2025 preseason high school football All-American, which is awesome. That's the quarterback of the future, right? Kane Archer. UCF picked as a bottom 5 P4 for 2025, number 774 in the country by Fox. Thanks, Fox. You're supposed to be the one that's propping the Big 12 up. Interestingly, too, something I didn't put in here, but we should talk about later, is the AP Top 25 dropped. The first one preseason AP Top 25 dropped. UCF in the NFL, Collie Davis had another standout game. Remember, Collier was doing really, really well last season, had an injury. And then RJ had 7 carries for 25 yards, which isn't super exciting. However, if you watch him, he looks faster than he did when he was at UCF.
1,000%.
Yeah, he looks way faster. So I don't know if that's because he was hurt because he was carrying such a big load here, or what the situation was there. But he looked really, really good. He'll figure it out. Okay, in other UCF football news, let's go ahead and get to the scrimmage update. So we had lots and lots of interviews coming out of scrimmage. We had some folks that came into scrimmage that had other topics that they talked about that didn't make it to the interview. So the good and bad, according to Scottfrost, it seems like the guys are really bought in and are playing hard and popping. He actually said that the tackling was better than what he expected. So one of the big bugaboos during the first Frost years was our tackling, right? And it seems like that seems to be going well. Cam Bancher was out with a lat strain. We were a little worried about that, but he did play with the ones. It was the first one out with the ones, during the scrimmage. So that tells me that again, he's the guy right now that's leading the pack. The defense is definitely ahead of the offense, which is what we expect because of that D line, as we talked about, and the talent in the secondary. We talked about the secondary a couple of episodes ago, but that secondary is much, much stronger than what we expected. And Alan, you said something last week when we were talking about the linebackers about Troy Ford Jr. stepping up, right? In this last scrimmage that happened last Thursday, he stepped up and stepped out to the point where it looks like he may be challenging for a starting rotation. We talked about a bunch of the other guys that were there, but that starting rotation, it sounds like he's going to be challenging for that, which is good because he was a guy that was highly recruited when he came in. Grinch says all three QBs are better. They've all. So Scottfrost went to Grinch and asked the defense who was the best QB. What's your opinion? And they said all three QBs are better. Scottfrost's big concern right now is turnovers, which kind of worries me. When it comes to having guys that are coming out and you've already got questions at quarterback. The fact that he's worried about turnovers is a little disconcerting for me. The other thing that's disconcerting for me, and I want to ask your opinions on what you guys think about this. Scottfrost actually said, he answered a question. He didn't come out and, offer this, but he said that he was okay with a multi-QB system. I'm going to let you guys give your thoughts and then I'll give mine. So, Alan and Josh, what do you guys think about the multi-QB system?
It worked for Tebow. Sorry. Listen, just like for UF as well, Tim Tebow is not running through that door. I know Coach Frost is trying to go with typically if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, but this is not that. It kind of feels a little like that, but I still have to trust his instincts on this. And I mean, the fact that the two we're talking about is not the most highly paid one in NIL is also an interesting thing. But look, we have two games where we should be sitting back and drinking a beverage, alcoholic or non, by the third quarter. Regardless of the quarterback, I don't care if Trey is quarterbacking. Like right now, we should be fine. He's still on mic, so which is great. But that's where we're at. So that's fine until we get to UNC. And if we're talking like Jacuri getting both running plays and other plays and coming in as a change of pace, but Cam is running the show or something, like by the time we're playing a Belichick-led team, which sounds weird because we're talking college football, I think we need to know. And if we don't, listen, if it works, it's great and looks like a genius. And if it doesn't, the opposite may be true. So I right now, my gut instinct is I don't care for the first two games. Let's see who proves it on the field.
Trey, what do you think? Multi QB system.
I just think he's saying that because he doesn't know who the guy is right now. I can't see him really going to a multi-QB system. That's just me. I truly can't see it. I can't envision it. I don't know how you would. Truthfully, I don't see it. So I think it's just a cover-up for right now because he doesn't know who he wants to name starter, and that's just what he's waiting on.
I agree with Trey. I mean, I think multi-QB system's awful. You don't see it work too much in cycle areas. If you have two, you have none. So I just think there hasn't been enough separation, and I guess that's concerning. Like 2 weeks before the season, but I think that is his way. I mean, everything we've seen, like whether it's on the rivals boards or whatever. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's just trying to hide this close to vest or whatever. Like it's just kind of the situation we're in. There isn't a guy that's really stepped up. I mean, the recent buzz has seemed to trend towards Cam Fancher. Just seems the most poised. Obviously, it's the most experienced, played in the most meaningful games when you compare it to the other two. But I agree with Trey. I don't think this is something. I don't think he's going to do a 2 QB system unless maybe it is just for the first 2 games, like see who does best. And then by the time UNC rolls around, all right, whoever looked the best. I can't see that rolling through 12 games. There just unfortunately has not been enough separation, which I think is a bad thing, but maybe they're all doing decent enough where, okay, it's maybe no one's looking awful. I would hope that the thing is that they're not all 3 just really, really bad and none of them are somewhat good. It seems like they all have had some positives and some negatives, which, makes sense for 3 guys that are, transferred multiple times, don't have a lot of play time outside of Fancher. So we'll see. But I agree with Trey here.
Yeah, I'm Jakuri, just to kind of correct that. The only one that's really transferred multiple times is our guy from Indiana, right? Everybody else has only transferred once. So
and Fancher was at Marshall FAU, now UCF.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about the Marshall part. Okay, multi-transfer. Either way, Fancher, I think, is the safe bet. I think he's the guy that's going to make the least mistakes. He's the most cerebral. Everybody said that. He's got an arm, but he can't run like the other 2 can. I think the other 2 are wild cards. I think we talked a lot about Jakuri and what he could do and what he could be last week. If he steps up, I think he's making progress. I absolutely, if we end up with a multi QB system going into the season, we're this season's toast. Sorry. You can't do that in the Big 12 season, or in a Big 12 conference. We're host. I mean, it's over. So I don't think he's going to do that. I think he was answering it the way that he was answering it for whatever reason. Yes, is this year 0? Are we going to get our quarterback of the future next year? 100%. We already talked about Kane Archer. He's going to be the guy next year, although we have another quarterback coming in next year as well. That's also pretty good. But I think at the end of the day, we are not going to have a multi QB system. It's not going to happen. And if we do, you might as well start betting on every other team, against UCF this year. So at the end of the day, I do.
Allen bets of the week again.
Yeah, Alan's terrible bets of the week, lose everybody money. No, just kidding. So, at the end of the day, I think we will have our QB named probably after next week. That's what I'm thinking. That way they get consistent reps with the ones for 2 weeks leading up to the season. Then they'll have the chance to prove it in the first 2 games of the season. And we'll see where it goes from there. Mike asked, will we know who QB1 is before the NCAA tournament? Yes, we will know who it is. It may not be the same QB1
he's saying we'll know before NCAA. That's actually a team we're playing, Roger. I don't know if you know that.
Oh,
I will say.
I thought he was talking about the basketball tournament.
It does look with one. It does look very close. I'm not gonna rip you too hard on that. What I will say is this: maybe this is it. I really hope it isn't. There is also everyone could be number 1 to make sure classes start on the 18th. To keep people around until classes are done, or in session. I doubt it. I don't think we necessarily played that game, but it might be the truth where he's using the media and he's using his voice to push someone to take it, to just be the man. And who knows? That is possible, but it is also, classes start next Monday. Now, I know no one here really cares about that, but all of them graduate.
You do, because you actually have to work.
Yes, I don't have to work next week. I have to work this week, and I've been working the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, I have a lot to do. But truth be told, there is that, old school ideology where, you can't transfer if you have a shot. But I really do think it's more of push someone to take charge.
I will tell you this, with the multi QB system, when we're talking about this, right? It doesn't work with Frost's offense anyway, because the way Frost's offense works is that he will show the same play multiple times, and then he'll either run or he'll pass or set up another play with that, which means you can't if you start bringing in like Jakuri for just running attack, then defenses are going to figure that out, and they're just going to play the run. So we cannot do that. You cannot do it in Scott's system because he uses a lot of play setup. You'll see the same look and have multiple plays that come out of that look. So I don't think that's happening at all.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And Noah, for those who aren't watching live, from Noah from the top rope, I don't know if anyone saw the scroll. He's graduating this semester, so here's that school too.
Well, you're graduating and my son's going in, so I don't know. It's like I got 2 kids. I don't know.
And as a quick aside, I have a friend of mine who I was roommates with at UCF. Their kid is in my class this semester. It is very, very, very weird.
Please give them a hard time. That's all I'm going to say.
I treat every student equally. I don't care if you're going to be in the NFL in the future, which has happened, or you are a random person who has a partner at a law firm and has that partner tell me to get them a better grade. Happened in the past too and didn't happen to their kid. Treat everyone fairly and equally at every single class.
You got me a better grade.
I did not.
Mike says you're still in
my
school.
student, Trey? I don't even know. Now I have to look
We're
at
gonna get fired here.
Nah.
So Mike says you're still in school. The Van Wilder at UCF. No, he teaches. He's a professor at UCF. That's why.
I've been working at UCF since 1998.
So he started working at UCF a year before I started at UCF. So if there's any questions as to who's older and who's the oldest person here, despite my gray hair, it's Josh. All right. So that being said, some other quick notes from the scrimmage. Tavion Swint, remember he was injured coming out of practice. He was carted off. He was seen back on the sidelines without a cast, so that's a good sign. Tavion Swint, expected a lot of things out of Tavion this year. Coach Frost said Malachi Lawrence and John Walker are stepping up. He didn't really see much of them, but they're starting to get in the swing of things, so they're really, really stepping up and making some good plays. Braden Marshall is being mentioned everywhere. Last year, he was good. There was a lot of expectations, and he seems to be doing even better this year as well. And DJ Black and Marcus Burke were being called out at wide receiver. The other person that keeps getting called out is Dunham. We talked about Dunham a couple of weeks ago. He led FAU with 3 interceptions last season, had 56 tackled, and earned a 72.2 grade from Pro Football Focus. So Dunham is a ball hawk. And what we've had for the last several years is we've had DBs that have played hands and not the ball. And the expectation and the defense is being told we play the ball, we go for turnovers, right? Which is Frost's MO. Trey can speak to that, right? He had that big interception against Memphis in the end zone that sealed that championship game for us. Thank God you caught that pass. Otherwise, I would have been really, really upset that year. But he's a ball hawk, and he's really, really good. He keeps getting mentioned over and over and over and over again. He's a senior, so he's got his head on straight. And look out for Dunham this year, because every single person they've said that that the defensive backs, we have so much talent in the safety room and the DB room that there is competition, but it's competition because they're good, not competition because nobody's standing out. And that's the kind of competition you want to have. So I'm excited about that. Antoine Jackson got called out again. Kelly Lawson, Jacob Good, Christian Peterson, DJ Bell, and Tony Williams. Didn't hear much about DJ Bell and Tony Williams. DJ Bell more so than Tony Williams. But they seem to be having a good lead up to the season. And then also Damari Henderson, which is someone we were all expecting a lot out of the Henderson twins, and Damari Henderson being called out as well. And Antoine Jackson. So a lot of really, really good things coming. Malachi Lawrence and Nigel Kelly, as are expected. have been extremely good at the end position. And then Horace Lockett and RJ Jackson were also called out, which is interesting considering who we have at DT. And Alan, do you want to add anything to that considering, what we talked about last week with those two?
With Dunham, you're talking about?
No, with Horace Lockett and RJ Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they, that they were sitting out. Apparently, it's not an injury related thing. I don't know how much you take away from scrimmages and stuff like that, where maybe guys sit out for rest or whatever reason. But I don't think there's any reason to believe that they're not going to be in the mix to either be starters or key rotation players, especially Horace Lockett. And we talked about him a lot. I mean, his size, what he brings to the table, how big of a impact he made at Georgia Tech. So I haven't really heard anything like dissing a player or anything like that would have a cause for concern.
Oh, he did have an injury as well, right? So
I didn't. Oh, okay. I didn't. I mean, like nothing serious though, from what I've seen though.
Well, yeah, it kept him. He was a little hobbled last year at Georgia Tech, but he seems to be fully recovered from that. Mike says RJ Jackson was in the injury notes as well. Again, Frost said so far, soft tissue injuries. The one that we don't know yet is Swint. So we don't know how serious he is, but we do know that he wasn't wearing a cast or an air cast or anything like that. So that's a really good sign. All right,
he's mostly healthy, which is good. I mean, knock on wood. I mean, outside like Day Farmer, and I think there's one other season-ending injury. For the most part, there might be some nicks and bruises, but for the most part, the team is pretty healthy.
Well, and hopefully that lasted the rest of the season, unlike the last couple of years. All right, let's go ahead and swiv it again. All right, Josh.
Swiv it.
There it is. Josh was swiveting, but he was muted because he's clacking on his keyboard. So
stop muting me.
No, I'm unmuting you, and you keep muting yourself because you're trying to unmute yourself. So stop it.
I'm setting up the guests for next week.
Okay, fine. All right. So the next thing I kind of wanted to talk about, which was of note, is actually related to UCF tangentially, but it talks about the Big 12 and what the expectations are for 2030 as far as the revenue to be earned. So Virginia AD Whit Babcock, I don't know if you guys know of him, but he's been an AD for many, many years and is very well known in that circle. He presented to the state legislature about the expectations of what the Power Four will look like and how much they're expected to earn. So it was interesting because his slides were public record because of the fact that he was presenting to the state legislature, but it gives you an idea of what these folks are thinking at the AD level of what's coming for 2030. So according to Whit Babcock's slides, and there were 50 of them, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a few things that I picked out of them. He's expecting the ACC and the Big 12 to make roughly the same amount of money by 2023 at $73 million per year in TV revenue. So I'm going to say this about that. Whit, I really hope that you're not expecting the ACC to be at the same level that they are, because I don't think they will be together with the same composition by 2030. I also don't think that the ACC will earn that same amount of revenue. If anything, you'll see them stay about the same or earn a little bit less, and that may swing back over to the Big 12 and allow the Big 12 to increase its revenue numbers. So 73 million, though, is what the projection is for both the ACC and the Big 12, which is interesting. So by 2030, right now we're in the 40s. If by 2030 we start earning 73 million per year in TV revenue, that's a big boon. However, he also talked about the expectations for the SEC and the Big Ten. For the SEC, they are expected to make 132 million in TV revenue by 2030, and the Big Ten 128 million. So, although we'll go up to 73 million, which we can do a lot with, that's orders of magnitude more than what we're going to make. Almost, a little over 60 million more than what we would make in 1 year going to the SEC. And why that's important, not just the pure numbers of the dollars that are being spent. However, as it currently sits, we can, and this is going to go up a little bit, but each school, power school, can offer up to 20% of their TV revenue as payment to the players. So there's been a lot of talk over the last week and before about consolidating all of this into a situation where there's collective bargaining, which I think is the best thing that could happen for everyone. At the end of the day, what ends up happening is if that happens, and Mike threw me off because he put a comment on here about something I'm going to talk about next. That's the other slide. But if at the end of the day, they are able to offer 20% of 132 million or 20% of 128 million, we're not going to be as bad as the G8 or whatever they call it at that point. However, that's a big advantage to teams that are in those two conferences, whose composition I don't think will be the same at that point. And I will tell you this, if the ACC loses UNC, FSU, Clemson, yes, they'll still have Notre Dame, but Notre Dame has its own TV package, and they only get a portion of the ACC's TV package. I don't think they'll be earning $73 million in 2030. I just don't. So the other slide, which Mike was alluding to, was the composition of the power conferences at that point. So what Babcock said, by 2030, there could be one of four possibilities. So that there is change coming. So bifurcation, which is basically splitting FBS in two. So you have P4 and everybody else. I don't think that's going to happen because I think the ACC is going to be in too much of a mess for that. Trifurcation, which is the SEC and the Big Ten, and then the ACC and the Big 12, and then the others. A super league with 3 tiers. So basically, the Big 12 and the ACC would be in the middle tier in his projections there. And then over half of the rest of the college football would be, so basically all the G5 and those that have been recently demoted, anybody who gets demoted next time would be the bottom tier. And then you'd have the Big 10 SEC, you'd have the ACC Big 12 or just the Big 12, and then you'd have everybody else, or a complete reorganization, which top half or 72 teams would be the power, quote unquote, 12. The bottom half would be the group of 8 or 64 teams. I don't think that's going to happen. The only way that works, I think, is if there's like a relegation type of thing, and I don't think anybody's going to sign on for that.
Yeah.
I really don't. And you only need, remember, there was recent changes to the legislation that for conference structure and power conference structure and autonomy structure, for anything to be changed, you no longer need all 4 conferences to sign off on it. You need 3 of the 4. So if we were talking about bifurcation, trifurcation, I'm going to have Mike just run the show for me because he's like right there where I'm at. There you go, Mike. Mike, you're running the show now. So this was what I was going to ask next, and this is what Mike's thoughts are. It's what do you guys think is more likely? Mike seems to think trifurcation, reorganization, and then bifurcation, and then the last one would be a super league. Yeah, great minds think alike, 100%. So what do you guys think? Which option 1, 2, 3, 4? What do you think is most likely out of all of these?
I think the sad reality is we already know what it's going to be. The SEC and the Big Ten are just going to pull away. I mean, it's already happening, right?
Yeah.
You don't get Texas as the number 1 team preseason, and all the spending that they have done to have little UCF upset the apple cart, right? Which is sad because little UCF isn't little UCF anymore, right? Now it's like little Boise State upsetting the apple cart. Look at what the top 25 is in preseason. It's pretty much I'd say 3 teams. ACC is kind of up there, and I don't know why, but it's all the 4 teams, and then let's just slide in 1. And it's not like you can make anyone in the Big 12 in the top 8. So I think we already see what's going to happen now. That also could be where they pick off. They being those 2 pick off and get even bigger and bifurcate, but enlarge to get even more rich. The rich get richer, but it seems like we're in an inevitable place unless there is there's external forces, government, states, things like that. And I don't think it's the best option. I feel like seems like the inevitability, and I don't think it's really going to be the best thing for college football, period.
Trey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's gonna. I mean, I was saying this when I first got on Nightline. This is where they're heading because that's just what they want. They want the Super League. They want a league where they can model it after the NFL, where everybody plays. They'll create their own conferences. They can pay whoever they want, how they want. We're kind of already giving them the blueprint to kind of see the test run, with the roster and the salary cap. How can salary cap work in college? Well, we're going to do the test runs in a few years. I think, is it this year or the next year where it kind of kicks in?
No, it's this year.
Yeah, so we're going to see how that works, how teams navigate that, and they're going to do whatever they can. If they have any issues, they're going to try to clean it up, and that's going to be the proposal. And you hit it on the head, Josh. It's the Big Ten and the SEC. That this has always been their play. If they can't have total control of the playoff, which they try to, they're just going to start their own league. And sadly, most of the eyes go to that. Most people kind of revert when it's college football. They revert to the SEC and the Big Ten. Good thing for us, we're in that country, of the SEC. We're in the Southeast. Florida is a big football state. The Southeast is a big football state, and the Midwest is big football states. So this is.
We've got 3 NFL teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're going to be like, oh, there's already 3 Florida schools. We're good. No, they're going to go wherever eyes draw, marketability. I mean, Roger, that's what they want. They want to make the most money possible. And UCF, 2017-18 gave them a glimpse of a cash cow. It might not be Alabama, but they're not looking for another Alabama. They're looking for better than the Vanderbilts. Not to disrespect the Vanderbilts, but Vanderbilt doesn't draw that kind of a draw.
Well, you did turn them down to go to UCF. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but Mississippi State doesn't have that draw. Vandy doesn't have that draw. There's some teams in the Big Ten that they just don't have that kind of ability because they don't have the pool, no matter how good they are. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think at least they're going to try to make it happen. They just want full control. I always joked and said it's going to be the SEC and Big Ten are going to combine and they're going to do pay-per-view every Sundays or Saturdays. They're going to sell it and people will buy it. That's just.
I will say it's a little minutia, but I would have said pay-per-view until the UFC, which is not to be confused with UCF, just got $7.7 billion for I think 5 years to just be on Paramount Plus. I think if the streamers want the eyeballs, the streamers are getting into these live type of sports. I feel like that Super League could get into that. And truth be told, that there is some plays there for us as a university to tout what your team did, where we can go and see that effect. And truth be told, why not? You only need to take one more. There's only one more team to take and to be a part of that. Let's be fair. Miami is funny. I still think Miami brings in eyeballs, but people, they're just not what they were in the 80s. FSU will bring in eyeballs, period, end of statement. We all know this.
Well,
I think we have a decent rep.
Well, it's a different model, right? So, the NFL model is based on location, right? Because in the NFL, you can get a region of fans, right? Whereas with college, you're not geographically fixed, right? You've got alumni all over the world, and you've got people that are closely connected to the university and its performance and are giving money. The outliers, I think, may be Miami and teams like SMU, because technically they shouldn't be part of this structure at all, right? But they've got the cash.
Correct.
To
they will buy their way in.
Right. They will buy their way in, and that's what you saw with SMU, right?
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, and it's good for that program too, because they're essentially buying a bid, and they're never going to turn down money or the ability to drive that kind of revenue. When SMU is paying, they're writing blank checks to recruits, to anybody at the portal. Texas Tech, they're writing blank checks. Miami, at this point, they're like, any transfer quarterback that wants to try to go first round, come down here. We'll write you a blank check. That's what they've done the last 2 years. And then they're probably going to keep doing it. So they're almost just buying their way into it. And
Miami, the difference for Miami is Miami's got national championships. So they're part of they have credibility from a program perspective. They haven't had credibility since they've joined the ACC, because they haven't done crap in the ACC.
Yeah.
So, but I think those are the outliers for that model. But ultimately, my point was that the model is centered around in college football is different than the NFL. So it will be different because of that fact. That being said, UCF's advantage obviously is we have a large metro. We're pumping out a lot of alumni, and eventually you're already starting to see it now with bigger donors, right? You've got the Ethereum guy who's in his late 30s, who's dropping millions at UCF, right? We don't have any of the old oil money like some of these other guys do. We're not SMU level yet, but we do have a lot of money coming in there. Now, as to what I think will happen, I think it will be a trifurcation first.
Yeah.
I think that what'll end up happening, I think it'll become a big three. I think the ACC is going to get torn apart. The SEC is still pissed off at the ACC. I don't know if you remember the Alliance. But anytime you go against ESPN or the SEC, the conference ends up dissolving, right? Look what happened with the East, look at everything else. So I do think the Big 12 hangs on. I think that we're not going to get rated for schools. We already have, right? But I think the ACC will, and their bell cows, there's not much left.
Their bell cows want to leave anyway. That's the main thing.
Have sued to do it, right? It's not a big secret. And then on top of that, their bell cows, there's no depth behind them. You've got smaller schools. You've got smaller. That for basketball you do, but not for football.
Correct.
But I'm sorry, this is a football-driven move, just like college athletics is. So UNC has seen the writing on the wall. They're leaving. Clemson is leaving. FSU's going to leave. Virginia's going to leave.
Yep. And
who do you have left? You have Virginia Tech, who's also trying to leave. You've got some other folks as well that are trying to leave. There's nothing left, so I think they get relegated. They go the way of the Pac-12.
Pac-12.
I think that those top tier schools get picked off. I think the Big 12 absorbs some of them, and there's a Power 3 at the end of all of this, because the Big 12 has played along with the SEC in every decision, whereas the Big 10 and the ACC tried to do their alliance thing and exert influence on the SEC, and it backfired. The SEC is the clear bell cow, and they have ESPN owns the SEC, so they're going to do everything that they can to protect that asset, right? So ultimately, college football is owned by I think Fox will have more of a say, because the dollars have to come from somewhere, from the advertisers.
Yeah.
And ESPN can't handle it all on its own, which is why you saw before ESPN's mantra was to own all of the valuable sports properties. They can't afford that anymore, which is why they've got deals like they do for the Big 12. So I think ultimately what'll end up happening is there'll be a big three. I think the ACC will get stripped of its primary parts. We'll pick up the Virginia Techs of the world, some of those types of folks in the Big 12, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, and I think that's the first part. And I think, again, just the SEC and them being greedy, they're going to unless we just take, I don't know how the TV deals work, but unless we just take a crap deal where they're like, oh, okay, they're going to try to get every penny they can. And I think that will be like, I think the first step, you're right. I think it goes to 3 because I think that's just the natural step that's it's happening. Like, I don't think there's no way that ACC survives. I don't see any out. But I think that it goes to this 3 model. They're going to let it play out a few years, and then they're going to make those conversations, which, again, I think, Roger, you've talked about in the past, that's going to be enough time for UCF to make that statement to make the bid for either SEC or however it is. It's just they're going to try. We have the time. It's not like we're out of time. We're in the perfect situation. We just kind of have to maximize. I'm not saying we have to be.
We gotta win.
18. I mean, yeah, we don't have to be 27, 18, but we got to be competitive. We have to be conference contenders year in and year out. Plus, the excitement part. It can't be boring, because now we're talking entertainment. That's what we are really talking about. Like, it's not. Yeah. I don't know if people know. Like, the triple option, like, it was cool. It was even cool when I was playing. They're not trying to have any of that kind of football anymore. And I think that's a great brand of football, but they're trying to get rid of it because people don't watch it. So you have to have that entertainment factor.
And the games go by faster. And if the games go by faster, they have less advertising time. So,
Correct.
So that's the thing there. So yeah, to answer Mike, I do think we're going to have a P3. It'll probably be 3 20-team leagues because I don't think there's enough juice in the squeeze for the Big Ten and the SEC to go more than that. So I think they consolidate around that 60, which means it's a good thing. At the time when we were talking about the Big 12 and in the ACC, when would you rather, we all said the ACC, or a lot of people did. And it seems like the Big 12 is the safer life raft than the ACC. All right, let's go ahead and swiv it. We're at an hour and 31 in. So I do want to talk about the AP Top 25. As Josh was alluding to, we have it is dominated right now by the SEC and the Big Ten, and obviously Notre Dame will always be put up there because they're a big brand. So you've got Texas at number 1, Penn State at number 2, Ohio State at number 3, which is interesting to me because I don't think Penn State is better than Ohio State, but we'll see. Clemson at number 4, finally finding their way back to the top. Georgia at number 5, which is interesting. Notre Dame at 6, Oregon at 7, Alabama at 8, LSU at 9. I don't think LSU is going to be primed. They seem to have like every 3 to 5 years they come out with like a great team and then they kind of fall back, right? Yeah. Miami at number 10. I don't see that happening at all. Arizona.
You know what it is? It's because that first game they needed to be a big time ranked game is Miami versus Notre Dame. So they need eyeballs. That's all it is.
They need numbers.
Yeah,
literal numbers.
It's Catholics versus convicts all over again, right? So then you've got Arizona State at number 11, Illinois at 12, South Carolina 13, Michigan at 14. That'll be interesting. I think they are going to be good. I don't know if they're 14. Florida at 15, SMU at 16, and that's purely about from who they bought. K-State at 17, Oklahoma at 18, A&M at 19, Indiana at 20, Mississippi at 20, Iowa State at 22, Texas Tech at 23, 24, Tennessee. That was a huge fall. And then rounding up the top 25 with Boise State. So obviously, you know how we feel about preseason polls. We've felt that way for a really, really long time. And if you look at where they were last season, Texas is number 1. They were number 25 last year. Penn State was 23. They are now number 2. And this is essentially, for both of those teams, it's essentially the same team, right? So that just goes to show you the top 2 were the bottom of the top 25 last year. As far as the ACC is concerned, the ACC's got Clemson. They've got Miami. They've got SMU. And technically Notre Dame, but they're kind of on their own. So no, FSU is obviously nowhere to be found there for obvious reasons, right? But I think that speaks to the strength of the Big 12 versus the ACC, because you know, if you take Notre Dame out of the mix, you've really got 3 ranked teams, and of those, I don't expect one of them to be there after 2030. SMU, it'll be really interesting to see what they do with their money. They're a paper tiger in my estimation. They're going to have a high-powered offense, but I think they're a little bit of a paper tiger. But I think this really goes to show you that the ACC and the Big 12 are looked at as the same, but with the Big 12 looked at a little bit stronger than anything else. As you would expect, you are filled with the Big 10 and the SEC at the top. So not much more to say about that. To me, the interesting thing is how we're now comparing, not with the SEC and the Big 10, we're comparing ourselves versus the ACC, because that really needs to be what the Big 12 is doing. You know, just like we did with the Pac-12 and we ended up killing them, we need to do the same thing with the ACC. So I'm betting on Brett, and hopefully he sticks around that long through 2030 to kill off the ACC as it stands right now. All right, let's go ahead and swiv it yet again.
Swiv it yet again.
Yeah, I'm going to give before we get into our listener love section, I'm going to we do have a note about UCF baseball. UCF baseball did pick up Trace Farmer, 2027 third baseman and right-handed pitcher from Fernandina Beach. He's again, this is 2027, so he's going into his junior season this year, right? Yep. Batting 346. His numbers are batting 346, 475, and 500 for on-base percentage, etc., and slugging percentage, which is great for a freshman or for a sophomore, like going into his junior season. He's also a really, really good and talented pitcher. He's had 10 appearances, 1.20 ERA. 1.20 as a sophomore.
That's really good.
And yeah, that's really good. He only gave up one homer, and batters hit 178 against him with a 291 on-base percentage. So that's a really, really good recruit. However, just with it, like anything else, a lot of these recruits that are like that, they never make it to baseball. Although it'll be interesting to see now that people are getting paid more, right? A lot of them would get drafted and make 100,000, 150,000, and then go play in the minors and work their way up. But with we don't know right now how the the roster payments are going for baseball. I know we added scholarships, which is a positive. But kids like that typically didn't make it to the roster, but that may be different. So hopefully he does, because he seems to be this seems to be a great prospect. All right, let's go ahead and swiv it yet again. Swiv it. Okay, I guess Josh muted himself. And talk about a little listener love. First, I want to shout out to at Night U 1642 commented, "Let's go UCF. I'm hoping Coach Frost gets his team to at least a 7-6 season with a bowl win. Go Knights and charge on." We agree. The goal is a bowl game. Hopefully not the same way that 2016 went and we almost ran off KZ. I was there for that game. There was a lot of people calling for Justin Holman. You were there. You remember it. There were Holman chants everywhere. So I hope that doesn't happen again. And then RJF 2607 says, "Have we interviewed KJ?" No, we have not, other than Josh surreptitiously giving him the side eye at Waffle House after games. As we mentioned, we had 11 new subs this week. The only one that I can see is Papa Z. All the rest of you guys have your privacy settings so that I can't see them. So shout out to Papa Z and everybody else who joined the family. Remember, like, subscribe, follow, share. We do this for you, and we want to cut Alan's hair. And then on Twitter, Locked On UCF, welcome to the UCF family. We had some other people join, but Locked On UCF, excited to talk with you. We did have Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week this week, but we lost Alan. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but he dropped out about 20. He's had tech issues all night. And since we have Josh back this week, we do have Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week. So, Josh, why don't you take it away?
Trying to make it a little topical this week because soccer teams are starting to play some games. So we have a MLS team, of course, in Orlando, but there's also one in Miami. Hold with me here. So we know Messi plays for that MLS team in Miami, which also lost 4-1 to Orlando City recently. And we also had the UCF connection, an assistant soccer coach who also played at a Miami-based MLS team in his career, is a hint. Which coach from a current UCF soccer team played for an MLS Miami team in his career?
Ooh. It wasn't Coach Calabrese, was it?
It is not.
Okay. I don't know MLS well enough to weigh in on this one other than some Orlando City history, obviously, because we were there. We were fans of them and going to games before they moved up to MLS. So I don't know. Trey, do you have any idea? That's your neck of the woods down there.
I have no idea.
Okay. I'll give you a hint. They're married to a head coach.
Oh, so they, Tiffany. Oh gosh, what's his name? I can't remember his first name, but Tiffany's husband.
That's what they're going to post on their social media. It's Tiffany's husband.
100%.
But you're right. It's Tim. Tim Sahadic. This is interesting because Tim played for the Miami Fusion FC from like 99 to 2001. He had 22 appearances. What's interesting is that soccer team over time ended up dissolving. I think it was in 2005 or so, and it was when I think it was Beckham had the rights to buy a team, and then he started the Inter Miami FC or where they're at now. So they both played MLS soccer with a team in Miami. Not exactly the same team, but I started doing some research on something for soccer. It's a deep cut. And I looked at their histories. I'm like, whoa, that's interesting. And as most people know, Tiffany was a gold medal winner in Trey's backyard in Atlanta in '96 and won a bunch of other stuff.
Which is why Tim is Tiffany's husband, right there.
Yeah. Oh, that's going to be great. I so hope they put that in their social media. So anyway, that's great.
All right. Thank you for that fun fact this week. We did miss you. And let's roll right into the quick update on other UCF sports that Alan does not watch, and he doesn't even participate in the show this week to listen to.
Yeah, and it's funny because I haven't done the show notes for this in a little bit. So literally the first thing in here says softball with no information on it.
I did a softball update last week, and so I didn't have one for this week because I didn't have time to do that part.
No worries at all. So, and I didn't see anything on softball yet. I know that the softball team about a month ago was getting new recruit after new recruit week after week. So we had a good amount of that. Let's talk about our AD spending money. Men's soccer Coach Calabrese, like you're talking about, is extended through 2029. Well, it's 2025 right now, and usually, at least in the Olympic sports, people stick around for about 4 years. Makes sense. The next exhibition game is this Thursday, August 14th at 6:15 at home versus North Florida. Now, if you are a fan of soccer and UCF men's soccer, you're going to both be excited and saddened for the beginning of the season.
You should watch them because they're good, and
absolutely.
And not only are they good, but they've got really good jerseys.
That is true. And look at the competition for the first couple games. So the first
kits, as they call it in soccer.
Kits, yes. Kits. Their first two games are away games. They're versus a top 25 vote receiving UNC and a preseason number 6 Wake Forest. That's all happening next week. And their first home game is quite far away. It's the day before opening night for our football team that Wednesday. So a couple weeks away. We'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But I was a little floored they're going that aggressive with like that level of team, but we need to be prepared for these for our league because Marshall is in there and they're I think ranked preseason number 2 this year.
Well, I mean, West Virginia is too, and they were pretty good last year. And
correct.
We hit a little bit of a slump last year, like in the middle of the season, but they came on strong and they were ranked, and we were expecting big things, and then it just kind of all unraveled there at the end with the last game.
Yep, 100%, and hoping to see a change so we can get back to our 2023 ways and not act like the Cows because we were number 2 for a week or so. So we also have another extension. The men's tennis coach, Lloyd Bruce Burgess, is also extended through 2029. It aligns with the 4-year college degree, but also, truth be told, men's tennis is just, thriving. Last couple of years, making the Sweet 16, just doing things that we've never done as a team at UCF. And while I know this is not the most popular of the sports we talk about, right? We're a lot of people like the stuff that Alan does watch. Men's tennis is doing great, and I bet we'll do fine for a while. Speaking of women's soccer, they have 12 newcomers to their squad, and they played in a couple of exhibitions with some insights I can tell you, and I haven't seen this anywhere else yet. So basically, every player on the team played between the 2 exhibitions. They won, quote unquote. It's not really winning when it's the exhibition games. They're really trying to evaluate and understand what's going on with the team quickly, but they did beat Jacksonville 3-0, and they played Miami a few days ago, and that was a tie game at the end of the day. It was 1-1. So, they're trying to figure out what the team looks like. I do like the fact that we're not we're winning or at least tying on those type of games. So that's all going on and wonderful. That's exhibition. So where's the regular season start? It's on the road at UAB, of all places, up in Birmingham. That'll be on Thursday, August 14th at 8 p.m. So if you are at home watching the men's game right after, go on to probably some type of radio or online, and you can find that game too. The first home game, though, is this Saturday, August 16th at 6 p.m. versus FAU. Now, the Fan Fest is coming up. Is anyone going to Fan Fest, by the way? Is that on any of your radars?
Probably.
When is it?
I'm probably going to do the kickoff luncheon as well.
We should talk about the kickoff luncheon. I really want to do the kickoff luncheon, but unfortunately, I've been doing too many other things. But the Fan Fest actually is happening right before earlier in the day. So you can do a double header. You can go to the women's soccer game at 6 p.m. and you can go to Fan Fest from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. That is also, as you well know, it's at the arena. You probably know that. Doors are at 1. Couple of things that I noted from the announcement. You're only allowed to bring one item because
the doors open at 1 or the doors are at 1.
The doors doors are scheduled to open at 1 p.m. So doors open at 1. Fan Fest is supposed to be on its way at 1:30 to 3:30 on 16th, and the Addition Financial Arena. They paid for it. I might as well give them their note. So a couple things from the note, the news item that I thought were interesting. You can't bring like 50 helmets to try to resell on eBay, so don't be that fan. Fans don't do that. Bring one item to be signed. They did say photos will be limited. They'll probably, if you have a kid, they'll probably be good, but you still just note that. There is a clear bag policy. So I wouldn't have thought of that going to Fan Fest. A lot of them have been in the stadium or outside. So you need to have that clear bag if you are
pretty much all athletic events now have that, right?
Yeah,
and that also includes at UCF, and that includes Alabama. Yeah, that includes umbrellas, right? So make sure you don't bring umbrellas. If it's raining, you're SOL, so bring a poncho. But it's a 12 by 12 clear bag, so it's not like you can get a giant clear beach bag and bring it with you, folks. Just remember that.
I was reading through it, like Really? But okay, I get it. It's good to know. Also, parking is free in garage D and F. Just have fun getting out of there. And the bookstore will be open from 10 to 4 p.m. In case you want to buy new swag. And that is all I have for other sports and stuff that Alan does not watch nor participate in, and leaves the podcast so he doesn't have to hear about it.
Yep, exactly. He's angry. Okay, Josh, thank you so much. Glad you're back. As we ramp up to the season, we're going to have some folks on to interview. We're actually going to do a special show for our 100th episode. This is episode number 97. So we'll have some folks on. So we'll be celebrating there. We might have some behind the scenes stuff that we might be posting as well. Maybe we'll get Nobra in his swim trunks and swimming glasses. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to thank everyone, for continuing on and moving us forward in our direction together. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for retweeting. Thank you for following on Instagram. Please make sure that you're liking, following, commenting. We do comment back on every single one of those, and we will bring them up in the show during our listener love segment. We appreciate everything you're doing. It's going to be a great season. No matter what, football's back. Go Knights and
Charge on.
Charge on. So
Charge on,
do you guys keep doing this afterwards, or does it die when I'm not on the show?